nights and in my dreams, they're always in my mind. These songs of hobbits, dwarves and men, and elves, come close your eyes, you can see them too.
Alright, I seem to be telling these stories in reverse order, I guess just because they're occurring to me in reverse order, but this is the tale of the Leaping Wizards. Where to start with this one? Okay, back in the day, when I was in high school, which was about 1999, there was really no role-playing going on in Arizona. This is not a great town for like Dungeons and Dragons role-playing. It just really wasn't that mainstream at that point. And this was back in the day, this was before 3rd edition really, so this was like AD&D. So it was really kind of fringe. It's a lot more accepted now. You can get games a lot easier here. And organized play especially is a lot bigger than it ever was. But in 1999, you really couldn't find a group. You were lucky if you had any kind of RPG group. And so I was lucky for the most part. But this was just when I was getting started. So the best way to get started, especially if you're new, is organized play. And by that I mean Wizards of the Coast ran what's called the RPGA. Still runs, probably. In fact, I'm almost certain they do. The RPGA is called the Role Playing Gamers Association, and what it was you would pay a membership fee, and you would be involved in officially sanctioned games that are run by other sanctioned players. So there was actually kind of a consistent gaming universe among all the players nationwide, and so everyone would kind of be playing the same games at the same general time, and there was a common pool of. It really wasn't that balanced, but let me put it this way. If you got a magic item from one of these adventures, you actually had to get it certed. By that I mean there's a certificate, and so like a sanctioned DM had to sign off that you got this magic thing. So like if you got a +1 sword, like a DM had to sign off that you got this sword. So in that way there was kind of some quality control, or at least control, meaning if I took my RPG character to Gen Con in like Milwaukee or something like that, that character would be legal as long as everything that I had got signed off on. But it's also a good way to meet other players. So like if you don't have friends that play, you join the RPGA, you go to an RPGA event, there's other players there. And so you can join, there's no requirement, you can just sit there and you can play. So I didn't have any friends who played it really, maybe 2 or 3, but not enough that I had a D&D game going. So what I wanted to do was, I started off playing RPGA, and I had an okay time with it, but I was always kind of the DM. I almost always liked to DM more than I liked to play. And I'm a pretty good DM, or at least I fancied myself a pretty good DM. I do okay. But I wanted to DM. So being a DM in the RPGA is a different kind of thing. There was like a little test you had to pass, but it wasn't a big deal. If you'd read the book, you knew the shit. So, I paid my fee, I got the DM thing, and there was a convention called, what was it called? It wasn't Coppercon. I think it was Coppercon. That was a gaming convention, and so really the gaming there was pretty anemic. It was mainly board gaming or tabletop gaming. There wasn't that much in the way of RPGs. And so I contact the con and I go, do you have any RPGA set up? And they didn't even know what I was talking about. And I'm like, Dungeons and Dragons, do you have anything set up for that? And so they go, no, we don't. And so there was like a regional coordinator. By that I mean there was one guy in the whole RPGA. So he was like regional coordinator for Mesa or Phoenix or something like that. And so I contact him and he's like, yeah, we could get a table going on. You're DMing, right? And I go, yeah, I could DM. So he sends me off an adventure that's a sanctioned adventure, and I forget what it's called, but it was like a first level adventure, Forgotten Realms. So I read this adventure, and like I said, I'm just starting out, so I was like, okay, whatever. So I kind of commit. I'm really committed to doing good here. So I got this mat that I can draw on. We're gonna have little miniatures. We're gonna have a great time. So I go there, and I have a little sign. I'm actually recruiting for RPGA, so like. I go down there and I have a little sign-up sheet. I have little cards that I'm going to give out and shit like that. So I do this thing where we're signing up all day, and at noon we're going to play this adventure. So I get 6 players, my brother's there, and immediately there's a problem. And I should have recognized it right away. These guys who joined actually they knew their stuff when it came to D&D. So the first problem that came out was about 3 of the 6, my brother included, made a specialty priest. And if you don't know what a specialty priest is, they're clerics. But clerics that worship a particular god. They're kind of like, you know how spellcasters or mages can specialize in a school of magic, so like you can have an illusionist or you can have an evoker who specializes in throwing fire or something like that, you know. That's what a specialty priest is, basically, is they focus on one god and they focus on like one particular aspect of that god, and they do it really well. So not only do they get spells, they get like a special benefit that's unique to that god. So, and what's funny was they all picked a specialty priest of the exact same goddess, Selûne, who is the goddess of the moon. Because the specialty priests of Selûne get a really great benefit, and they get a really great spell. And so, not only are specialty priests at that time anyway, essentially broken in AD&D, it's because they got... Clerics are so good at AD&D because they get to cast any spell that falls within their spheres, whereas mages get a spell book that has like 5 spells. They get to pick from like 5, but clerics get to pick from every spell that falls under their god's purview. So they can memorize any spell, which is like 3 dozen. They don't have any particular, with rare exceptions, they don't have any material components. They don't have to like sacrifice a pearl or a ruby to cast their spells, so it's cheap. And they can cast them anytime they want, and they can heal. And they're pretty good fighters, and they have pretty decent hit points, and they can wear any kind of armor they want. So, as you can see, clerics are completely broken, and specialty priests made them even more so, because not only that, they get a bonus, basically a bonus feat for being a specialty priest, which in the case of Selûne was as the moon grew fuller, they would get bonuses to hit and damage. So I think under a full moon they got like a +2 to hit and +2 to damage. Under a new moon they had minuses, but it was really good under a full moon. And they also got a really good cleric spell, which I think was called Moonblade, which basically allowed them to summon at any time a magical sword made out of moonlight that had bonuses to hit on its own. So I think like a specialty priest of Selûne who cast Moonblade had like +4 to hit just on account of being a full moon and using the Moonblade. So it was really good. And so just on their own, I'm not accusing them of cheating or anything. I'm not accusing them of like min-maxing. They just looked at the book and was like, wow, this class is really good. I'm going to do that. So they made a specialty cleric of Selûne, and there was like 3 of the 6 who did that. And so I'm like, already this is trouble. So like, all of a sudden, I have to introduce them to an adventure, which is actually fairly easy now that I think about it, where all of a sudden there's 3 specialty priests of Selûne just hanging out, which I'm guess like, well, you're all going to the same church, I guess you would be hanging out, right? So they do this thing, and they join... What's that? Something on their foot. Ew. Anyway, so they're doing this thing, and we're running the adventure, and it's going okay. They're steamrolling any of the fights they're given. But they have to do this thing where they're escorting I believe they have to escort a prisoner across country to another city. So, one of the planned encounters in the adventure module was that they would make camp, and a group of mercenaries trying to free the prisoner would ambush them in their camp. And so I read the flavor text, I'm reading the setup to the adventure, I'm like, who's on watch? And so they go, so-and-so's on watch. And I go, okay, roll your perception check, roll your awareness to see if you detect the ambush. And he does. And so I go, suddenly you hear a rustling from the undergrowth. You stand up and alert your companions when suddenly 3 wizards leap from the shrubberies, brandish their quarterstaffs, and shout a challenge at you and attack. And I'm not saying the flavor text exactly the way it was written, but it was pretty close to that, where wizards leaped out of the undergrowth, shouted a challenge, and attacked. And the group immediately started laughing uproariously at me, because they imagined in their mind's eye, they're like, shut up guys, I hear something. So they all kind of sit up and they ready their weapons, and then all of a sudden, 3 fucking nerds leap out of the bushes, waving sticks, and shouting death threats at them. Fucking knee slapper, that is. Okay? So, they start laughing at me, and I'm just humiliated. So I'm like, I'm serious, that's what happens. I'm like, and I didn't write this shit, okay? I'm like, that's what's written there. It says 3 first-level magic users ambush you. That's what it says. And they're like, we're gonna kill these guys. And they're right, they were. Because they're talking like 5 or 6 guys, who are fucking combat beasts. But 3 wizards, 3 first-level mages, take a look at these 5 guys and go, they're ours. We're gonna fucking kill these guys. Outnumbered 2 to 1 and outclassed in every basic respect. But these magic users in AD&D, you know how many spells first level magic users get? 1. 1 spell. You blew your wad, you were done. That was it. That was it. 1 spell. In 3rd edition and 4th, you think it's hard being a spellcaster? Dude, I don't want to hear. Every time I hear characters bitching about stats, or I hear characters bitching about spell selection, or not enough spell slots, I want to slap them in the mouth. You guys don't know shit, because old school, I played a mage. I played old school wizard. I got 1 spell. Did I bitch? No. Because that's how I roll, okay? You wanted to be a wizard. You wanted to be a wizard in Dungeons & Dragons. You had to be fucking hardcore, you had to be smart, and you had to be tough. Because that universe wanted you to die. You had D4 hit points. You had a roll of a 4-sided die for your hit points. You didn't get no max hit points like you do in 4th edition. You didn't get no fucking constitution bonus. You got D4, which meant you averaged 2 to 3 hit points, and if you were really unlucky, 1. And you got 1 spell. If you were a specialist, you got 2. But most people, 1. So, if you fucking respected a high-level mage, because they went through the shit. They went through the shit of having no hit points. They went through the shit of having 1 spell. And once they got to the point where they could throw fireballs, 5th level, when 3rd level spells opened up, that was when they started to outstrip the fighters. And that was the genius of D&D, was because it wasn't balanced. It wasn't. Fighters and clerics started off so far ahead of everyone else. You know, fighting classes started off so far ahead of people. But once you started to get the wizards up, like fighters started up here, wizards started up down here. But as they gained in level, they kind of crossed. So fighters started to become less effective at higher levels, but mages all of a sudden, they could throw some mass destruction out there. So that was where the balance kind of came in. If you wanted to be powerful, if you wanted that power, you had to earn it. You know what I'm saying? So that was the whole point of the wizards. But first level, they were pansies. And you had to... So not only was it ridiculous, these 3 fucking nerds were sitting in the bushes going... Fucking dog. These 3 fucking nerds sitting in the bushes going, those 6 guys, we can do this. They leap out, go, ah! And then they start throwing magic. So they start laughing at me. And they start going, leaping wizards, because this is the wizards leap out of the bed. They go, leaping wizards, leaping wizards. I fucking heard leaping wizards for years after that. Because I was the leaping wizards guy. So I got mad. I got a little mad. But what I had done was, before I ran the module, I actually saw this encounter, and I didn't read it too close, but I was like, I saw this encounter going like, 3 mages? That seems weak. And then I look at their spell loadout, and it just says 3 human magic users, hit points this, armor class this, and this is the spell they've chosen. And so, all 3 magic users had chosen the spell Magic Missile. Magic Missile is a spell that hits automatically and does 1d4 plus 1 damage. That's it. So basically these guys were going to leap out, throw 3 spells, 1d4 plus 1, a spell that would have killed none of them, and then engage with quarterstaffs. So I actually realized this encounter was pretty stupid before I even ran it. So I was like, even if they all concentrated fire on one guy, they might, underline, might, kill one of them, but probably not. Because these guys were they all had at least, even at first level, they had about 8 to 10 hit points. So it was not looking good that they were going to kill even one guy with Magic Missile. So I actually made a note in my book that I was going to change the spells that they were gonna have. So what I actually thought, I actually sat down and I thought, if I was one of these 3 magic users, and we were actually going to ambush 6 fucking guys, all clad in heavy armor, who are all clearly clerics, because they're openly wearing their fucking, holy vestments and symbols and shit like that. There's at least 1 fighter. If I were 3 fucking nerds, and we were going to brazenly attack, because I had to do that. I had to have them jump out. That was the flavor text. I had to read the flavor text. So if I were going to have them go, ah, and leap out and attack, what would I do? I would choose fucking better spells than that. So I actually wrote down, all 3 guys were going to pick different spells. The first one, sleep. I had them pick sleep. So the first thing that happened was the first wizard leaps out, casts the sleep spell, knocks out 4 of the 6. Down. Seriously. So all of a sudden, 4 of them go down immediately with the sleep spell. Not helping was that 3 of them were the clerics, and 1 of them was the wizard who also had the sleep spell memorized. So all that was left was the fighter and the thief. Okay? So keep that in mind. So, the second mage, by the way, these guys, all 3 wizards win their initiative. So even though they weren't surprised, they still won initiative. So the first mage opens up with sleep, cripples half the party. Cripples 2/3 of the party, really. So the first mage, I'm like, yes! Dude! So, second one opens up with Charm Person. And so I charm the thief. And so the thief starts attacking his buddy. Wait, was it charm or what? It was charm. So like as I recall, if you're asked to do something your character would never do, then you get a saving throw. But this guy, they'd already established these guys didn't like each other because the fighter was a lawful good character and the thief was like chaotic neutral or some shit. And so like the lawful good fighter was like, I don't approve of your lifestyle, boy, and if you do anything in front of me, I'll run you in. And so these guys were actually like really hating each other immediately. So the thief, I was like, the first mage goes, Charm Person, hit that, kill that guy, he's gonna turn you in or something like that. And so the thief was like, I shouldn't I? And so immediately the thief starts attacking the fighter. So now I've got 5 of the 6 essentially under my control. And so the third one, as I recall, the fighter turned he wasn't afraid of the mages at all. So he immediately turned his attack on the thief. But he's like, I don't want to hurt the guy because he's clearly not in his right mind, so I try to knock him out. I hit him with my gauntleted fist. And so I go, okay, you're trying not to hurt him, so okay. So he hits the guy, and of course he's got like 18 absurd strength. Hits the guy, knocks him out. So I'm like, okay, that was pretty good. So the third mage opens up with his spell, which is Ray of Enfeeblement. So he hits the guy and drains him for like 4 strength points. But what was funny was, this guy was carrying so much equipment that I think what happened was he got enfeebled. It was like 4 or 6 strength that all of a sudden he lost. So he went from like 18 to 12 or 14. And so all of a sudden his strength dropped so much, and he was wearing such heavy armor, and he carried just fucking mule, like a pack mule on his back. He was carrying so much that he actually had become severely encumbered. And so his armor class dropped, his 2-hit dropped, and he couldn't hardly move. It was really funny. And so the other 2 wizards, the fighter he takes a whole round, shrugs his backpack off, he lumbers towards the one mage, and he misses. And so the 2 mages start getting front and back of this guy and just start beating him about the head and shoulders with their sticks, and actually doing a fair amount of damage at it, especially considering considering magic users can't hit in AD&D for shit. They are not meant to be melee fighters, but I was rolling really good that day. So they are just pounding the fuck out of this fighter, just left and right. He's getting it from in front, he's getting it from behind. These little fucking twerps are just beating the shit out of this guy. It's like, oh, fuck, oh. And so like the third mage, he's under orders to kill the other players and free the prisoner. So he goes over and he starts. There's 2 guys who are set to guard this prisoner, and so he goes over and he starts. He goes over and he sees the mage. And he recognizes this guy's a mage because, of course, he's got a quarterstaff, and of course he's got a robe, recognizes he's the most dangerous guy, and caves his fucking head in with his stick. Because he's prone, he's unconscious, he's useless. And so for like 4 fucking rounds, the fighter is trying to fight off these 2 wizards who for some reason he can't hit, and for some reason are beating the crap out of him. Just bad luck, really. So, but the third mage is going around just whomping on people as they're sleeping, and I'm rolling damage. I'm not just saying you die, but he's whomping on these specialty clerics, and by the end of it, eventually the fighter actually did manage to overcome and defeat these two mages who were beating the crap out of him, but only because these mages had 3 hit points. So this guy could breathe on them, and his breath would be so bad it would kill these fucking mages. So by the time he got these 2 mages off his back and turned on the third guy, he'd already killed 2 guys. He'd killed the mage, and he'd already killed one of the specialty priests, just like raining blows on him with his stick. Oreo's caught in her blanket. So 2 characters are dead. And so eventually the fighter kills the third guy, and he really was a hero because he actually did overcome some pretty hefty odds, especially considering that sleep spell fucked up that party. That was a bad luck sleep roll. I'm not even denying that. I got lucky as hell to do as well as I did, but all of a sudden I made this nothing encounter, and I made it like really memorable and frightening because I was smart. And so the regional coordinator after the game, they win. And so the coordinator pulls me aside and he goes, "You can't, what were you doing?" And I go, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Some of the players told me that 2 of them died." And I go, yeah, there was this one encounter with mages, and they died in that fight. And he goes, "But that shouldn't happen." And I go, "What do you mean?" He goes, players really aren't supposed to, what am I trying to say? He goes, "Those adventures are balanced so that players can finish them." And I go, "Yeah, actually I found it was a little too easy." And he goes, "What do you mean?" He goes, the spell loadout was like 3 wizards, really?" And he goes, "Well, that's what's written. Did you play it as it was written?" I go, yeah, basically." He goes, "What?" I go, well, I mean, I changed the spell loadouts for the wizards because it sucked, and it's not logically what wizards would. And it was like it wasn't even ridiculous spells. Every wizard has fucking sleep, right? And he goes, but you changed it. You can't change it. And I go, oh, well, sorry. And he goes, no, you don't understand. Like, he goes, you know how upset players get when their characters die? And I go, that's D&D. And he goes, that's not RPGA though. And I'm really confused. I go, but it's D&D. Players are at risk of dying. He goes, not in the RPGA. What? He goes, it takes a long time for players to level up in the RPGA because at best, RPGA games are run once a week, usually once a month. And especially in Arizona, really RPGA only plays like once every convention, so like maybe twice a year. So, you know, like if you start killing characters, it takes a long time for those characters to get running, and it frustrates. I'm like, dude, most players only play once a week anyway, once a month if they're lucky. And I'm like, it takes a long time for anyone to level up. And you know, when players die, they're upset. But when characters die, players are upset. But that's how the cookie crumbles. You know, like, play smart, you won't die. And sometimes shit happens. Sometimes the dice come down. And he goes, we can't have that. We can't have you killing characters. And I'm like, oh, look, I didn't go down there trying to kill player characters, all right? I didn't go down there and be like, this'll fucking shell them. Like, I didn't do that. Like, I just set up an encounter that really was stacked against the bad guys, and that's how the dice came down. I wasn't really being unfair here. It said that, you know, the adventure said these guys were trying to kill them. It was said they were trying to secure the prisoner and escape with them. So, like, that's what I did. I was like, I said two guys to take care of the only guy who was standing, and the other guy was trying to free the prisoners. And he's like, we can't have you DMing games if you're going to be just killing player characters. And I'm like, so they kicked me out. I couldn't DM RPGA events anymore. But apparently, that's how the RPGA rolls. Apparently, it's been that way for a while. And it's even more so now than it ever was. I just remember my older brother teaching me how to play like first edition D&D, and players would die all the time. I've had players die, and I've bitched about it, but like, I took it like a man. You know, like, I've never complained that... I took it like a man, you know, like, I've had players die, and it sucks. Sure, it sucks. But, like, that's... My characters went out fighting. Even the characters I thought were kind of robbed. Like, I remember playing Linkara's game, not Linkara, in Lord Cat's game. I remember when my characters got killed in Lord Cat's game. I thought it was unfair. I thought the adventure was stacked against me, and I didn't want to play in that game anymore, but I wasn't like... I was like, you know, fine, I'll roll up somebody else, I guess, if you want me to. And so, like, the game kind of fell apart after that, but, like, I was like, okay, fine, at least I know how it's going to operate. I know the rules, so whatever. It was a first level character. I didn't give a fuck, you know? So, but I'm like, I was looking through some of the RPGA stuff lately. You know, 3rd edition, why are you chasing your tail? I'm starting looking through the 3rd and 4th edition stuff lately, and they're doing the same thing. Characters are not supposed to die in these games. In fact, I'm looking through these modules, and she's eating her own tail. I'm looking through these modules, and it actually has fudge rules written into the module. For instance, like let's say orcs attack, and they're like, so let's say 6 orcs attack, and it says in the notes, if the players are having a hard time with this encounter, it says if the player's having a hard time with this encounter, consider reducing their hit points, or if the players are very beaten up by the time they reach this encounter, consider reducing the number of orcs in this room. And I'm like, you know, I get it. I do. I get that players are supposed to reach the end of the adventure. You know, I get it. Because if a player dies in an RPG adventure, it does kind of screw the rest of the party. I get it. and I actually get wanting to, if the player is having a run of bad luck, that you should go easy on them. You know, like don't make everything a ball buster. Don't, and I never do this. I never go into the game wanting to kill the players. I talk smack to them, but I'm never fudging so that they die. Believe it or not, I want them to succeed. I do, but I don't want to make it too easy. I want them to feel like they've accomplished something. Right? I want them to feel like they worked together as a team, they were smart, and that they overcame and struggled and were victorious over a game that was harsh but fair. So like, this game is a no-lose scenario. And what's worse is the players know that. The players know that I cannot kill them. And I think every player in the RPG knows that you can't lose. And if there's a game, if you can't lose a game, that game is not fun. There's no victory in overcoming adversity because there's no penalty for losing. If there's no adversity, you can't overcome it. So it's really just, it's masturbation. You know, it really is just it is just a bunch of players talking in funny accents, jerking off. Because they can't lose. So there's no penalty for failure. So players are going to act like jackasses. They're not going to take the characters seriously. They're not going to take the game seriously, because if the game's going too hard on them, the DM's going to go easy on them. So, like, I get, you know, I've done this. If the players are having a hard time, I've reduced the hit points of monsters. I've reduced the number of monsters that are in the next room. But I've never done it to be like, these characters have to see the end of the dungeon, so I'm gonna, if a guy's dying, I'm gonna have the monsters spontaneously seek another target to hit. You know, I'm gonna have the monsters behave the way monsters would act. If the monsters would regroup and get reinforcements, they're gonna do that. But I've never understood this concept where I'm supposed to let them win. What are you, fucking children? What kind of fucking schoolyard bullshit is this where I have to let you win? Fuck you guys. Like, not fuck you guys, but like, I'm not gonna let you win. I'm not gonna let you walk all over me. I mean, I'm trying to run a fair game here. You guys, like, you wouldn't respect me if I was gonna let you win. Or if it seemed like I was gonna let you win. That's why I so object to what the RPGA kind of stands for nowadays. Just because those modules are written with the express intent to let the players win. And that so wasn't how it started. And that's so not how I play this game. But yeah, I didn't play by the rules. I got 2 players killed, and I got kicked out because I didn't let them win. So that's all I got. I'm sure some of you guys are in the RPGA, and I'm sure I'm going to get hate for that. And I'm sure some of you guys are like, I don't let them win. I've had players die in my games all the time, and I never been kicked out. Okay, maybe it was just, I'll admit, maybe it was just my experience. I had a guy who was a hard ass. That was just me. But really, it is my experience that they're supposed to win. You're not supposed to kill anybody, because people will complain that you're unfair, and there's bitching and there's moaning, and I'm sorry, it's just the old schooler in me. It rankles at that concept. I've had high-level characters die. I've had them die in really heroic fashion, and I've had them die due to completely fucked up luck. And you know what? That happens. And I just came from a school that didn't bitch and complain when that happened. So that's the story of the Leaping Wizards. Hope you enjoyed. And stay old school.